We're now joined once again by Roger León, who's superintendent of the Newark Public Schools, the largest public school operation in the state. Is that fair to say, Superintendent?
Absolutely true, my friend. Great seeing
Well,
you.
great seeing you. As we get to the back end of 2024, what would you say the number one accomplishment is of the Newark Public Schools? Number two, clearly the greatest challenge as we move into 2025. Please, Superintendent.
Of the major accomplishments, there are a wholesome lot of them. We're in the start of the fifth year of our strategic plan. So we have evolved an entire new redesign of our entire school system, creating a new ecosystem starting as early as a baby being in a mommy's womb through mentorship at the collegiate level. The students that graduated from the class of 2024 earned $169 million in college scholarships. The class of 2023, actually 48.9% of those students who graduated now 2 years ago successfully completed their first year of college. So from the trajectory of where they're going, we clearly have a plan set. And then obviously the work ahead with regards to our strategy and increasing enrollment, which has exceeded even our wildest expectations of getting the little ones into schools. That's kind of the great work that is before us. In terms of the challenges, obviously the realities of the impact of the pandemic linger. And so from our
How
social
so?
emotional.
Superintendent, how so? Because I'm sure there are all kinds of impacts, all kind of impact. But the most significant impact from COVID educationally in Newark is?
We know that there are students in Newark and even across the country that were good during the pandemic, meaning that the way that they received remote instruction worked for them. But the overwhelming majority of students in Newark, that entire experience did not work for them. And I'm not trying to say that a child from Newark is different from a child in any other part of the country. I'm saying as a kid from Newark, there's that interaction that we actually need in our classrooms between and amongst students, between teachers and support staff that is quite unique, that a child actually needs to have the presence of somebody who cares about them like our teachers do in the room with them, and that the realities and however hard we worked during the pandemic to bring about the best instructional program, knowing that everyone was evolving in how to strategically do that. Everybody did their best. We know that our best work is when we're actually with students in school and interacting, whether it's one-on-one in groups or in classes as a whole. So the impact of the pandemic is what I see as the challenge. While I don't want to blame COVID for anything, the reality is that its impact have lingered, and we're working aggressively towards addressing students' needs on two fronts: on the academic programming, and then what the pandemic unveiled, which was the social emotional learning needs of our students. That it wasn't some students needed assistance and support beyond the academic programming, but that the overwhelming majority of our students not only needed it probably prior to the pandemic, but definitely need it post-pandemic.
I was remiss early on. I should have disclosed that the Newark Public Schools has been one of the underwriter sponsors of our longtime Stand and Deliver Leadership and Communication Development Program for our nonprofit, and continues to support our programming as an underwriter. But Superintendent, let me try this. You talked about the impact of COVID. You've seen a series of articles in different publications, but in NJ.com, I want to understand, A, if this is correct, and B, how you respond to it. That according to NJ.com, less than 20% of the third graders in the Newark Public Schools can read at third grade level. Less than 20% of third graders read at third grade level. Reading proficiency. To what degree, A, how do you explain it? B, how much are you arguing COVID is a part of that?
So we know that we want to make a clear distinction between student performance on the state test and the ability of children to read. So when people are saying the students performed on the NJSLA, which was the state test in third grade, at a proficiency level less than 20%, That is not untrue. That is a quite big difference from then saying how many children actually can read. That one doesn't correlate with the other at all.
What's the difference, Roger?
Well, we know that there are state standards by which the students are evaluated on an assessment for a 4-day, 5-day period, right? And so the tools that the student utilizes to demonstrate mastery is what's more critical now that we've moved from a paper pencil test to actually an online platform. When we look at the students that are in 3rd grade, as an example, we have approximately 2,500 students in 3rd grade across all of our schools. The actual subset of the students that are having difficulty reading and comprehending is well below 300 students. How do we determine that? Through a number of multiple different other indicators that allow us to know what are actually the students' actual reading capacity. I'm not suggesting that the state test isn't a valid assessment of student proficiency. I'm saying that there's a big leap to say a kid can't read because they didn't do well on that test. One and the other are not the same.
But Superintendent, to be clear, you're not happy, regardless of whether there's a difference or not, you're not happy with where students are today in terms of reading?
Absolutely not. No, so
Right.
That's a whole other issue. The issue with regards to how students are performing, well, obviously there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But if we take it full throttle, we know that 9th graders in our high schools as of last year have in fact outperformed their counterparts from before the pandemic. So over the last 3.5 years, the students who have been in our schools and in fact took the 9th grade test actually surpassed what students were doing before the pandemic. So as it relates to correlation, in English language arts, the students actually performed better than in mathematics. And in mathematics, we're still about 1.4 percentage points of what they were scoring before the pandemic.
Superintendent, I have to ask you this. We've asked every educational leader this question. I'm going to ask you. AI and public school education, does it worry you, excite you? What? AI and public education in Newark.
So I appreciate the pivot, because part of what becomes extremely important, especially in education, is we like doing things a certain way and then not changing it. So what AI has done for everyone is disrupted what we like to call our normal. And so the idea that anything does that brings about the type of change that inevitably would impact kids. Anything that's new, we worry about. The work that we're doing and piloting with Khan Academy at First Avenue School in particular, and a number of other schools in the North Ward, where in fact Bill Gates visited our schools because of the distinction of the work, is in fact what we believe is serving as a model, that it helps aid to and provide assistance for our students, as opposed to replacing that which I already outlined prior, which is that human interaction is extremely integral to our students. So what we're doing is utilizing AI to really provide the type of tutoring and assistance and additional support that students need, while monitoring the implementation of particular strategies.
Superintendent, I promise we'll continue the conversation about AI and public school education in Newark and a whole range of other issues, including a new universal school schedule. It's 8 a.m. real quick, 8:15 a.m. to 3:05 p.m. Universal across the board, right?
True, regardless of the school, specialized schools, elementary schools, high schools, 8:15 is the start time, 3:05 is the end time.
Thank you, Superintendent. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Stay with us.
You.
You got it. Stay with us. Right back.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 30 years in public broadcasting. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, a foundation serving children, Valley Bank, PSEG Foundation, Kane University, Hackensack Meridian Health, Johnson & Johnson, the Adler Aphasia Center, the Fidelco Group, and by PSCNG. Promotional support provided by New Jersey Monthly and by Insider NJ.
Here at Kane University, everyone gets their chance to climb higher. Michael came to Kane and found his passion for healthcare, and now he's a doctor. After Trisha graduated, her graphic design work was featured in the New York Times. Samantha is studying athletic training and finding her path through an internship with the New York Giants. Real students, real stories, real success. Cougars climb higher. Kane University.